Chronic pyelonephritis. Already used in DNA, chronic pyelonephritis. History. Okay.
Next, we will move on with our next lecture, New WHO CNS Tumor Classification 2021 by Dr. Vandita Singh, Associate Professor, AIIMS Raipur. And the chairperson for the session is Dr. Pandurang C, Associate Professor, ESIC Medical College, Rajaji Nagar, Bangalore. Pandurang sir has 13 years of working experience and has about 50 papers published in various national, international journals and has contributed 3 chapters in the textbook. Thank you, sir, for chairing the session. Over to you, sir, to introduce the speaker.
Thank you, madam. It is my honor to introduce Madam Dr. Vandita Singh. She is currently working as an Associate Professor of Pathology at AIIMS Raipur. She has done MBBS from BJ Medical College, Pune, MD from LTMMC, Mumbai. She had a postdoctoral fellowship course in neuropathology from CMC Vellore and trained in oncopathology at Tata Memorial, Mumbai. She has published around 20 national and international publications. She is a guide to postgraduate students and a co-guide to many fellow other departmental co-guide for other departmental thesis. And she has completed her 2 project, ICMR project. And her area of interest is mainly oncopathology and neuropathology. She is having very vast experience in neuropathology. She is a life member for many pathology organizations like Indian Journal of Pathology, Microbiology, and our Neuropathological Society of India and others. Now I will request Madam to deliver her lecture.
Thank you. Are my slides visible and am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I am just going to thank you for a very, very kind introduction and thank you for inviting me. I'm going to stop the video now because my slides are too busy and they will kind of obstruct your view. So, all right. So the new WHO CNS classification tumors 5th edition has come about this year, and because of the C-impact updates that we've all been following since 2016, we know that it is a very busy classification with a lot of molecular alterations that have been added, and therefore I think the postgraduates would find it overwhelming. So I try to make it as simple as possible. One second. So the learning objectives for my talk would be just very brief information about the need for new classification and new diagnostic techniques which are desirable for the new classification. What are the gross changes in the new WHO 2021 CNS 5th edition versus the older one, 2016 version? What are the tumors whose names have been revised? What are the new entities that have been added and any other minor nomenclature changes? What are the changes in the grading criteria for the various tumors? What are the very important molecular alterations which are characteristic for specific histologic types, which can help in differential diagnosis as well as for prognosticating and predicting response to treatment? The concept of layered reporting or integrated diagnoses, IDH mutant gliomas, their grading and criteria for diagnosis, how is it different from 2016? A little bit about glioblastoma IDH wild type, the difference between adult versus pediatric diffuse gliomas, new changes in ependymoma classification incorporating molecular or methylome groups, meningiomas, any differences in their grading, diagnosis, and molecular alterations, new entities in pioneer tumors, medulloblastomas, and CNS embryonal tumors. So there has been an explosion of a lot of molecular alterations that have been identified continuously since 2007. And in the recent years, in the last 5 years, because of extensive methylation profiling, it has led to a lot of confusion, but a good idea towards the tumor behavior and its response to treatment. That is the reason why molecular characteristics have been incorporated in the new WHO. So ideally, what one would need for a proper classification of CNS tumors now in 2021 would be, in addition to the traditional microscopy and immunohistochemistry that we are used to, next generation sequencing and methylation profiling. So this next generation sequencing, NGS and methylation profiling, is not easily available at all resource settings, and that makes it a little difficult to give an integrated diagnosis. Nevertheless, we should be aware of the changes that are occurring. So because technology changes with time and it becomes more accessible, which it will in the coming few years, and we need to be prepared when that happens. So the explosion in the different classifications of CNS tumors and the types and subtypes has been because of the methylation profiling that has occurred. This whole genome methylation profiling is useful not only in the new classification, but it can help us with identifying molecular alterations in CNS tumors, which are already known, like copy number variations or 1p19q co-deletion status or MGMT profile. So it is a technique which should be adapted as and when it is feasible for different resource settings. So what are the major changes that have occurred in the new WHO 2021 versus WHO 2016? In the category of gliomas, glioneuronal tumors, the major changes that have occurred is, as you can see from this table, earlier on the group of gliomas, which was huge, around 15 types and subtypes, which were all graded differently, and they all had their molecular characteristics that were needed. Now that has been completely broken down into 3 broad categories of the adult type of diffuse gliomas and the pediatric type of diffuse gliomas. This change has occurred because molecularly they are completely different, they are exclusive. The adult type of diffuse gliomas versus the pediatric type of diffuse gliomas. In the adult type of diffuse gliomas, again, the classification has been simplified to 3 main groups of the astrocytomas, which are IDH mutant, oligodendrogliomas, which are IDH mutant and 1p19q co-deleted, and glioblastomas, which are the IDH wild type. Amongst the pediatric diffuse gliomas, they have been further given 2 broad types, the low-grade types and the high-grade types. In the low-grade and high-grade, the differences are the molecular alterations. Molecular alterations aside, which are MIB-L1 altered, MAP kinase pathways, alterations, etc., they all have a very good prognosis. And earlier on, we would classify each glioma into grades 1 to 4. And grade 1 and 2 would be considered low grade, whereas grade 3 and 4 would be considered as high grade. But amongst the category of pediatric diffuse gliomas now, amongst the low-grade gliomas, there is no real need to classify them as grade 1 and 2 because they almost have similar prognosis. And the high grades into 3 and 4 because they might have similar prognosis. So there are a few alterations that are very important in the pediatric type diffuse low-grade gliomas. We know from the earlier classification that the BRAF alteration, BRAF 100E, was a poor prognostic marker, whereas the BRAF fusion alteration was a good prognostic marker. So those all still stand. Amongst the pediatric diffuse high-grade gliomas, the category of glioblastoma in the pediatric age group has been completely removed. And instead, we have the categories of diffuse midline glioma, H3K27 altered versus mutant, which was called in the last classification. Diffuse hemispheric glioma, H3G34 altered, diffuse pediatric type high-grade glioma, which is both histone as well as IDH wild type, and infant type hemispheric gliomas. These are all very high-grade or grade 4 gliomas. The other change that has occurred is that we classify the tumors into adult, pediatric, diffuse types, and then you have the circumscribed astrocytic gliomas. So the reason why we have made this difference is because it makes it easy for us to come to a diagnosis. A lot of these tumors have overlapping histopathological features, but they have very different prognosis and behavior. So in order to synthesize radiologic appearance with histopathology, molecular change, and behavior of the tumor, this new classification has come about. So among the circumscribed astrocytic gliomas, we still have all the old tumors which were there in the earlier classification, but not necessarily in this group. And their nomenclature has been changed a little bit. So all of these have peculiar molecular alterations which are not only diagnostic, Wherever there is a dilemma between two tumors which look alike, we can resort to molecular alterations, but they are also prognostic and predictive as to the response to treatment. So this is a broad change that has occurred in the glial and glioneuronal tumors. So there are 13 entities whose names have been revised in the new WHO 2021, and these are listed here. I will only talk about the important ones. Like for example, in the earlier classification, we had the grading was not type specific. So every entity in the WHO 2021 had its own grade, but in the new WHO 2021, every entity does not have its own grade. Within each entity, grading differs among the subtypes. So amongst the broad types like astrocytoma, which can be IDH mutant and it can have grades 2 to 4, there is no need for having a term glioblastoma IDH mutant. The term glioblastoma is now reserved for high-grade tumors which are IDH wild type. Glioblastoma is not diagnosed in the pediatric age group. If you see a very high-grade glioma in a child, you have to put it in the category of the pediatric type, diffuse glioma, high-grade. Then you have the diffuse midline glioma, which was introduced in the last classification, but was called as H3K27 mutant. That has now been changed to altered because there are other alterations like EZIP, etc., which are also associated with these changes. Therefore, it cannot be limited to just H3K27M mutant midline glioma. Chordoid glioma was earlier attached to the third ventricle in its definition, but no longer so. Astroblastoma now requires the MN1 alteration for its diagnosis. Amongst the ependymomas, a lot of changes have occurred, but the supratentorial ependymoma in the last classification, which was called RELA fusion positive, is now called as ZFTA fusion positive because this reflects changes in the fusion partner better than just RELA fusion. Embryonal tumor with multi-layered rosettes, which is there in the earlier classification, has now become a more broader classification, which has a lot of subtypes with different molecular connotations. And there are a lot of changes in the other mesenchymal tumors, which reflect the changes that have occurred in WHO classification of soft tissue tumors as well. Amongst the craniopharyngioma category, there were two variants which are described in the last classification, edmantinomatous and papillary. Now these have been given specific types, and the reason is it's no longer a subtype, it's called a type. And the reason is because they are molecularly completely different and they behave completely differently. Amongst the cellular tumors, the three types which were described last time, pituocytoma, granular cell tumor, and spindle cell oncocytoma have all been grouped into one group rather than as separate types. And the reason is that it is now thought that these are all variations of the same tumor, but they may still behave a little differently. So they are put in one group. Amongst the pituitary adenomas, a new term PITNET has been added to recognize the fact that pituitary adenomas are indeed neuroendocrine tumors, and therefore they follow the nomenclature as is for endocrine tumors. Now, I'm going to skip this these very heavy slides and just go to the important points. There are 22 new entities that have been added in the new WHO 2021, which include 7 new gliomas, 3 glioneuronal tumors, 4 ependymomas, 4 embryonal tumors, 3 sarcomas, and 1 pituitary blastoma tumor. And these 22 new entities have been added because these are some rare types which are associated with particular molecular alterations, which not only help in making their diagnosis, but also prognosticate the patient. So these are diffuse astrocytoma, MIB or MIB-L1 altered, a low-grade tumor generally seen in childhood. Polymorphous low-grade neuroepithelial tumor of the young, or called the plenty in children associated with epilepsy. The diffuse low-grade glioma, MAP kinase pathway altered, which is again a low-grade glioma seen in children or in the pediatric age. Then amongst the high-grade tumors, there are 3 gliomas, which are all seen in children. The diffuse hemispheric glioma, H3.3G34 mutant, diffuse pediatric type high-grade glioma, which is H3 wild type and IDH wild type, and the infant type hemispheric glioma. So these 3 are in the pediatric age group. In addition, there is a new entity added called the high-grade astrocytoma with pyloid features. So generally when we see pyloid features, they are generally seen with low-grade tumors. But this is a very different kind of tumor, which although is an astrocytoma, but it has overlapping molecular features with pilocytoma as well. This variant has been identified only by methylation profiling. Therefore, we don't really know how it's going to be defined better. It will take some more time. This is a provisional entity to define it better. Amongst the glioneuronal category, there are 3 new entities. The diffuse glioneuronal tumor with oligodendroglioma-like features and nuclear clusters, which is just a provisional entity because this is a diffuse. All glioneuronal tumors have a glial and a neuronal component, but they are not very well defined. So in your biopsy, you may not be able to really identify them. And a very close differential for glioneuronal tumors are oligodendrogliomas. So when you have a tumor which could be glioneuronal, but it has areas which look like oligodendroglioma, then you need to keep this DGO NC tumor in mind. This tumor will not show 1p19q co-deletion, and when it does not, then you have to put it into the category of diffuse glioneuronal tumor with oligodendroglioma-like features. There are also other tumors like the myxoid glioneuronal tumor, which is seen in the septum pellucidum, the multinodular and baculating neuronal tumor, which is another new type. This was actually described in the 2016 classification, but now it has been given a separate type in the glioneuronal broader category. Amongst the ependymomas, a lot of changes have occurred, and these changes have come about because of methylation profiling, which differs in different locations of the ependymomas. So in the last classification, we knew that supratentorial ependymomas, RELA fusion, were aggressive tumors, which could be identified by doing an immunohistochemistry called the L1-CAM. And now we know that there are other types as well in the posterior fossa and in the spinal ependymoma. So in supratentorial ependymomas, now we have the YAP1 fusion positive ependymomas, which have a good prognosis compared to the earlier RELA fusion type. In the posterior fossa ependymomas, there are 2 broad categories, A and B. The category A is seen in childhood and has an aggressive outcome, whereas B is seen in older children and it has a better prognosis. Among the spinal ependymomas, new category is the MYC-N amplified, which has a very poor prognosis. In the embryonal group of tumors, earlier on we would call everything as CNS neuroblastoma NOS, and the molecular alterations were still in the making. So in the new classification, that change has been acknowledged. So you have a new entity called the CRINET. You have CNS neuroblastoma FOXR2 activated. You have CNS tumor with BCOR internal tandem duplication, which belongs to the group of tumors like those in the kidney, like the clear cell sarcoma, and the desmoplastic myxoid tumor SMARCB1 mutant. Then in the category of sarcomas, the changes reflect the changes in WHO soft tissue tumor classification. And in pituitary, a new entity has been added called the pituitary blastoma, which is a very primitive tumor. So just to show a few of the pictures of these new entities, Plenty, which is a polymorphous low-grade neuroepithelial tumor of the young, is a glial neoplasm, which is associated with history of epilepsy in young people. It has a diffuse growth pattern. On microscopy, it looks like an oligodendroglioma with nice round nuclei, little bit of perinuclear clearing, and maybe some amount of atypia. But the classic feature is that it is strongly CD34, diffuse CD34 positive. And it shows BRAF and MAP kinase alterations, especially FGFR type. Then another new entity, the diffuse astrocytoma, MIB-L1 altered, which is a low-grade pediatric diffuse astrocytoma. This is a grade 1 pediatric diffusely infiltrated. We must know, here I must mention that in the pediatric age group, getting a diffuse glioma is very rare. So they are not common. Generally in the pediatric age group, you need to get a circumscribed tumor. But when you start seeing diffuse tumors, then you have to look at the molecular alterations, because the molecular alterations would decide the behavior of the tumor, not really the histopathology. So when you get a diffuse astrocytoma in the pediatric age group, which looks low grade on histopathology, please do a MIB-L1 alteration. Please do the H3 K27 stain. Please look for the H3.3 G34 mutation, because that is what is going to decide the behavior of the tumor. When the tumor has MIB-L1 alteration, it is a low-grade tumor which behaves well. This tumor in the earlier classification was called as the isomorphic glioma. Now the hemispheric diffuse astrocytoma in children, which is H3G34 mutant, on histopathology looks really primitive and it almost looks embryonal. However, it is a glioma which shows this mutation. This mutation can be, the surrogate marker for this mutation is an immunohistochemical stain which is easily available, and this must be done. Amongst the glioneuronal tumors, the entity of mixed glioneuronal tumor has been well defined. This is a tumor which is glial and neuronal, present in the septum pellucidum and thereabouts, and it shows a PDGFRA gene mutation, which defines it. So why do we need to identify or document this tumor as separate? Is because it has very close differentials like the DNET, etc. If you go only on histopathology, it looks like a DNET. However, based on its location and its molecular alteration, we know that this is a mixed glioneuronal tumor, which should behave differently from a DNET. Now, the entity of multinodular and vacuolating neuronal tumor is an entity which was described as a pattern in the last classification, but it has been given its own type in this new classification. And the reason is this is a very low-grade tumor. Again, the problem with this tumor in the earlier classification was that it was misdiagnosed as oligodendroglioma because it shows a lot of vacuolation in its neuropil and also around the nuclei. So this is a very low-grade tumor, and it might show a little bit of atypia, but it is low-grade. So it needs to be classified as such. Then amongst the category of embryonal tumors, CNS tumor with BCOR internal tandem duplication is another tumor that we must be able to diagnose. And the reason is because this mimics either an anaplastic ependymoma or it mimics a lot of the other embryonal tumors. But if we identify the BCOR internal tandem duplication by surrogate immunohistochemistry, which is available, it can be treated better. Now, amongst the tumors of the pineal region, a new entity has been added called the desmoplastic myxoid tumor of pineal region. Now, this is a very important entity because in the pineal region, you get a lot of tumors that look like this, very spindly with a myxoid background, and often they are called as low-grade gliomas or pilocytic astrocytomas, or sometimes it is even difficult to characterize them as tumors itself. So how do we make a definite diagnosis of this new entity? By doing molecular evaluation for SMARCB1 mutation, which defines this entity and differentiates it from the other tumors which look similar. Amongst the pituitary tumors, a new tumor has been added called the pituitary blastoma. In the earlier, it's not that this is a new tumor that has arisen now. It was always there, but it was misdiagnosed. Either it was called an embryonal tumor or it was called something else. But now, because of molecular evaluation, we know that it is characterized by variations in the DICER1 gene, which define it. And it looks very characteristic. It has Rathke epithelium, it has blastemal cells and neuroendocrine cells. So there is a change in the grading of WHO CNS tumors in the new WHO. So like I said earlier, now all the grading that is done within a tumor type. It is not, you do not call every entity, do not give it its grade. So it's easier to grade CNS tumors now. Astrocytomas, so the broad categories are astrocytoma IDH mutant, which can be from grades 2, 3 to 4. You can have oligodendrogliomas, which need to have IDH mutation 1p19q deletion, and they will have WHO grades 2 and 3. In the glioblastoma, which is now by definition has to be IDH wild type, it is only one grade, WHO grade 4. Amongst the diffuse astrocytoma, especially in children, you need to look at MIB and MIB-L1 alteration, which is WHO grade 1. Polymorphous low-grade neuroepithelial tumor of the young is again a grade 1 tumor. Diffuse amongst the high-grade pediatric tumors, the diffuse hemispheric glioma H3G34 mutant is WHO grade 4. Pleomorphic xanthoastrocytoma, again, just similar to the older classification, is of 2 grades, grade 2 and 3. So we don't call it anaplastic pleomorphic xanthoastrocytoma. We do not call an astrocytoma anaplastic astrocytoma. We just give it its grade. This makes it easier to understand, and this makes the grading kind of comparable to the other WHO gradings. Multinodular and vacuolating neuronal tumor is WHO grade 1. Amongst the ependymomas, you may or may not grade it. It's not necessary. It depends on are you able to do the methylation profiling or not. If you're not able to do methylation profiling of ependymomas, then you should just grade it like in the earlier system as grade 1, 2, and 3. The only difference in histopath grading for ependymomas in the new classification is the myxopapillary ependymoma, which was earlier called as WHO grade 1, is now called as WHO grade 2. And this is because this tumor recurs and therefore has a worse prognosis from WHO grade 1 ependymoma. Amongst the meningiomas, again, they are graded into grades 1, 2, and 3. Like in the older classification, they have the same criteria, but this grading is not just based on histopath features of atypia or anaplasia, but also incorporates molecular alterations which can give it its grade. The solitary fibrous tumor, which was there in the earlier classification, HPC, the term hemangiopericytoma has been removed from it, and it has been given grades 1, 2, and 3. So what are the key molecular genes or profiles which are characteristic of specific types? So there are a lot of molecular alterations that have been described, and it's difficult to remember all of them. So I have just pointed out the main ones. For all astrocytomas, which are IDH mutant and do not show 1p19q co-deletion, the important molecular profiles that we must look for are IDH1, IDH2 mutations, ATRX loss, TP53 mutation, and CDKN2A2B homozygous deletion. Out of this, the CDKN2A2B homozygous deletion is very important because these tumors are WHO grade 4 by definition. Amongst the oligodendrogliomas, which by definition need to have IDH mutation and 1p19q co-deletion and retention of ATRX, you also need to do TERT promoter mutation, CIC, FABP1, and NOTCH1 because they might indicate a poorer prognosis or a higher grade oligodendroglioma. Amongst the glioblastomas, which by definition are only IDH wild type now, there are no glioblastomas which are IDH mutant now. So amongst the glioblastomas, you need to do the IDH wild type. If there is IDH mutation seen in a high-grade glioma, you have to put it in the category of astrocytoma, IDH mutant, WHO grade 4. And then you have to look for CDKN2A2B homozygous deletion. If it is a high-grade glioma, which is IDH wild type, and it shows necrosis and microvascular proliferation, you can look for molecular alterations of TERT promoter mutation, gain of chromosome 7, loss of chromosome, and EGFR amplification. Amongst the low-grade gliomas, which I have already mentioned in childhood, the alterations that can be looked for are MIB, BRAF, FGFR, and other MAP kinase alterations. Amongst the high-grade gliomas in pediatric age group, the molecular alterations that are important are in the midline gliomas, the H3K27, in the hemispheric gliomas, the H3G34, and in the high-grade gliomas, they do not show both of these, the histone modifications or the IDH mutation. You just call it IDH wild type, H3 wild type, and then by methylome profiling, you also need to look for PDGFRA, MYC-N, and EGFR. Amongst the other tumors, the important ones are the high-grade astrocytoma with pyeloid features, which I had already shown you. These are tumors which are high-grade, but they also have pilocytic astrocytoma like eosinophilic granular bodies and myxoid change. And they show, as is their morphology, so is their molecular alteration. So if we do a BRAF, it will be positive. If we do an ATRX, it will be seen like an astrocytoma. But in addition, they are high grade, and like astrocytomas which are high grade, they also show CDKN2A2B homozygous deletion, which gives it a bad prognosis. Amongst the pleomorphic xanthoastrocytoma, we look for BRAF and CDKN2A2B. You just have to know that CDKN2A2B has a very bad prognosis, homozygous deletion. So when it is present in a pleomorphic xanthoastrocytoma, it connotates that this PXA is high grade or anaplastic and will behave poorly. For the astroblastoma, which was there in the last classification, MN1 alteration was not yet defined. So in the new classification, this MN1 has become a defining feature for astroblastomas. Amongst the other tumors, I'm going to look at it in details as we reach those entities separately. So when we give a diagnosis now for a WHO CNS tumor, what does the report consist of? The report comprises 4 layers. The 4 layers basically need the 3 bottom layers first, which is your histologic diagnosis first. When you make a histologic diagnosis, you have to look at the age of the patient, the radiology for whether the tumor is diffuse or circumscribed. And then based on the differential diagnosis that you come at on the histological diagnosis, you have to ask for molecular tests if they are available. So sometimes with the histologic diagnosis, you can give a CNS WHO grade, but in some entities, you need molecular information to grade the tumor. So a proper layered report would have histodiagnosis, the CNS WHO grade, which can be histologically defined or molecularly defined, and the specific molecular alteration, which may or may not have been done. This is a proper integrated diagnosis that is required. So what are the examples of these layered reports in CNS tumor classification? For example, when you look at a tumor and you find that histopathologically, it looks like an ependymoma. On histopathology, it grades look to be a high-grade ependymoma, grade 3, and then you perform then you try and do molecular tests. But however, if the molecular test is not available, then you call it simply an ependymoma. Then you give it its site, that is supratentorial, and NOS, not otherwise specified. The NOS here means that the molecular tests which are desirable or essential for its diagnosis could not be performed. Now, another example here is, suppose you get a tumor and on histopath classification, you think it is an oligodendroglioma. Then what do? You ask for specific molecular alterations for oligodendroglioma. That is, you would do an IDH test, which should be mutant. You should do ATRX and 1p19q co-deletion. Suppose it does not show those changes, then you do not give it a grade. All right, and then you just simply call it, if it is a child, you would call it diffuse low-grade glioma, MAP kinase pathway altered. That is, you do not have the other alterations for oligodendrogliomas, MAP kinase pathway altered, and give it its subtype based on what kind of MAP kinase pathway alteration is seen. That is FGFR or other subtypes. And then you further classify in detail the molecular alteration in the last line, which is duplication of FGFR tyrosine kinase in the MAP kinase pathway by next generation sequencing. So this would be an ideal diagnosis in a setting where proper molecular tests are available. Now coming to the grading of gliomas, we look at the IDH mutant astrocytomas first, which now are grades between grades 2 to 4. So in all tumors now in the new WHO classification, there are some essential diagnostic criteria and there are desirable diagnostic criteria which have been separated. All right. So in the essential diagnostic criteria for IDH mutant astrocytomas, what you need to see is a diffusely infiltrating glioma with loss of ATRX or exclusion of 1p19q co-deletion to make this diagnosis. But in addition, the desirable diagnostic criteria could be other tests like the TP53 mutation, methylation profile, or other differentiation by morphology. So in the grading criteria for astrocytomas, not much has changed histologically. A WHO grade tumor, 2 tumor still is well differentiated, does not show any mitosis, does not show microvascular proliferation and necrosis, but it has IDH1 and IDH2 mutation. WHO grade 3 tumor, like in the earlier classification, shows significant mitotic activity, does not show microvascular proliferation and necrosis, and in addition does not show CDKN2A2B homozygous deletions. When CDKN2A2B homozygous deletions are present in a tumor, it automatically becomes a grade 4 CNS tumor. However, then it may not need to have microvascular proliferation or necrosis to call it grade 4. So the CDKN2A2B homozygous deletion, which is detected by the FISH technique, is a major prognosticator for astrocytomas, and it is independent of the histopathological features. So to summarize the changes till now, the changes that have occurred, which is now type specific, and the grades are 1 to 4, which are given Arabic numerals and not Roman numerals. Among the grading of the gliomas, the astrocytomas have been graded from grade 2 to 4, and this grade 4 is a separate category from glioblastomas. In the oligodendrogliomas, you have IDH mutant 1p19q deleted tumors, which can be grade 2 and 3. And in the ependymomas, you may or may not grade it histopathologically, depending on if you have methylation profiling or not. Whereas the term glioblastoma is now only used for adult IDH wild type tumors. Any high-grade glioma with microvascular proliferation and necrosis, which is IDH mutant, needs to be called an astrocytoma, WHO grade 4. So the changes in grading vis-a-vis molecular parameters are astrocytoma IDH mutant grades 2 to 4. IDH mutant glioblastoma is a term which has been completely discarded and it has been replaced by astrocytoma WHO grade 4. It is defined by the deletion of CDKN2A2B with the histology criteria. So you need not do a CDKN2A2B by FISH for an obvious glioblastoma in which IDH is mutant. So if molecular features, even if you're not able to do molecular, if it has microvascular proliferation and necrosis, it becomes a grade 4 astrocytoma. In oligodendrogliomas, you just need to see the IDH mutant status and 1p19q co-deletion, which can be exclusive of ATRX. You need not really do 1p19q co-deletion if ATRX is retained. In glioblastomas IDH wild type, you need to look for EGFR TERT 7 plus and 10 minus. You did not always do these alterations in a tumor which is histopathologically like a glioblastoma. So any tumor which is slightly high grade and IDH wild type, you can look for EGFR TERT 7 gain and 10 loss. Already covered this, you need to look at 1p19q IDH mutation with CDKN2A deletion. When an oligodendroglioma, which is IDH mutant 1p19q co-deleted, has CDKN2A homozygous deletion, it automatically becomes high grade or WHO grade 3. In the glioblastoma IDH wild type or grade 4, which is a separate entity now, the essential diagnostic criteria are the same as in the earlier classification: microvascular proliferation and necrosis, with or without TERT promoter mutation, EGFR amplification, gain of 7 and loss of 10. The other features are desirable but not really necessary to make a diagnosis. And here I reiterate again, in the pediatric age group, we no longer give a diagnosis of glioblastoma. You have to call it as a pediatric diffuse high-grade glioma and do histone alteration evaluation. So what is this high-grade glioma, diffuse hemispheric glioma, H3G34 mutant, which is seen in children? This is a very mutation. It looks very primitive and embryonal. So in a child, that is a close differential to make. And for that, we need to do this IHC to make this diagnosis. Among the group of ependymomas, some changes have occurred which incorporate methylation profiles of these tumors, which are specific for specific sites of the ependymoma. In total ependymomas, you have to look for ZFTA alterations and YAP1 fusion alterations. This is because the ZFTA alterations portend a poor prognosis, whereas YAP1 portend a good prognosis. In the posterior fossa ependymomas, there are two broad categories, the group A and the group B. The group A is seen in young children and the group B is seen in adolescents and adults. By definition, the group A is WHO grade 3. And by definition, the group B is WHO grade 2. So from this, you realize that in ependymomas, there are two ways of grading the ependymomas. One is, if you don't have methylation profiling, you still grade it by the older classification. If you have methylation profiling, then you have to incorporate it in your grading. In methylation profile, if it falls under the posterior fossa group A type, it automatically becomes WHO grade 3, whether it has high histologic parameters or not. Similarly, in the spinal ependymomas, the MYC-N amplification automatically makes the tumor a higher grade because of poor prognosis. Major change in ependymoma has been the upgrading of myxopapillary ependymomas, which was earlier called as grade 1, to a grade 2 tumor because it is highly recurrent. So these are all the methylation subtypes of ependymomas, which I have already told you in brief, and that will be a repetition, so I'll skip that. Amongst the meningiomas, the major changes that have occurred are that you no longer call a meningioma as atypical or anaplastic. You just call a meningioma, and you give it its WHO grade based on histopath features. But you can also grade a meningioma based on its molecular features. For example, if you have a meningioma that shows the SMARC E1 alteration, it might be a grade 2 meningioma. If it has a BAP1 alteration, it might be a grade 3 meningioma. So these are, so we incorporate the histopath features as well as the molecular features. So atypical meningioma, which was earlier called atypical, is no longer called atypical. You just call it a meningioma WHO grade 2. It has the same histopath criteria as in the last classification. For anaplastic meningioma, in addition to the histopathologic features, you can call a meningioma malignant if it also shows molecular alterations of third promoter mutation and CDKN2A homozygous deletion. Amongst the pineal tumors, a lot of changes have occurred, and I will cover that again. Then we have the embryonal tumors. The most common high-grade malignant tumor of childhood is medulloblastoma, which by definition occurs in the posterior fossa. So even in the last WHO classification, medulloblastomas were classified molecularly into 4 broad groups: the WNT activated, the SSH activated, which were of 2 types, with P53 mutation and without P53 mutation, and the medulloblastomas which showed no changes of WNT or SSH. These were molecularly defined, and they had surrogate immunohistochemical markers which could be used to differentiate them into these 4 groups, that is beta-catenin, GAP1 and YAP1. But now in the new WHO 2021, a new type has been defined as medulloblastoma, histologically defined. That is, you can call it NOS when you don't have these IHC markers, or you do the IHC markers, but they don't give you a correct grouping, then you can just call it medulloblastoma, histologically defined. So what is the importance of this molecular grouping in medulloblastomas? These different molecular groups, WNT, SHH with TP53 mutation, without TP53 mutation, the non-WNT, non-SSH group 3 and group 4 are important because they appear at different age groups. They have different histologic classic features and different prognosis. So it was important to differentiate them along these lines. But this was not a perfect classification because immunohistochemistry available, your beta-catenin or GAP1 and YAP1, could not distinguish between group 3 and group 4 tumors, which are actually the poor prognostic types. And therefore, methylation profiling came to the rescue. And MYC and amplification is also looked for. So methylation profile will really help in the treatment of medulloblastomas. This is a tumor which if treated well and treated by the right kind of treatment, the patient responds really, really well. So that's the reason that methylation profiling is a way to go ahead in medulloblastomas. Amongst the other CNS embryonal tumors, we all know about these entities. The ATRT, which was defined with INI1 loss, the embryonal tumor with multi-layered rosettes, ETMR, which was defined by its IHC, LIN28A, and the CNS neuroblastoma, and the last classification. But in the new classification, a new entity has made an entry called the cribriform neuroepithelial tumor, or the CRINET. And the CNS neuroblastoma has a molecular definition of OX-R3 activation, or CNS tumor with BCOR internal tandem duplication. These changes refer to the changes in neuroectodermal tumors at other sites in soft tissue. Now, this INI1 loss, which used to define the ATRT in the earlier classification, has now been reported to not be specific just for ATRT. This INI1 loss can be seen in poorly differentiated chordomas and CRINETs as well. And therefore, these categories have been separated. They all used to be called ATRT in the last classification, the CRINET, etc. But now we know that INI1 loss can be seen in others as well. So what is this CRINET? CRINET is a ventricular tumor in a child which is characterized by a very high-grade histology. It shows INI1 loss. However, its behavior is not yet certain because there are very few tumors, CRINET tumors, which have been definitely identified. Among the embryonal tumor with multi-layered rosettes, for example, it looks like an embryonal tumor, very primitive looking, high-grade, small round cells, and However, now earlier on it was called the embryonal tumor with multi-layered rosettes, C19MC altered. But in this group of tumors, what has been observed is DICER1 mutation as well. So it has its subtypes based on molecular features. Amongst the categories of mesenchymal non-meningothelial tumors, a lot of changes have occurred. And these changes reflect the changes that have occurred in the WHO classification of soft tissue tumors. So a solitary fibrous tumor is no longer called SFT, HPC, or hemangiopericytoma. This term has been left in the new classification. In the pineal tumors, this is a challenging area, the pineal tumors, because all the grading criteria are not well defined. There are not enough cohorts to really say what defines a grade or behavior of a pineal tumor. So although some of the entities from the last classification have been retained, like pineocytoma, pineal parenchymal tumor of intermediate differentiation, which now is defined by KBT BD4 alteration, papillary tumor of pineal region, but new entities have also been inserted, like the desmoplastic myxoid tumor of pineal region, which is now defined by its MARCB1 mutation. In the tumors of the cellular region, amongst the pituitary tumors, pituitary adenomas are now also called as pituitary adenomas / PITNET because they belong to the group of neuroendocrine tumors. The other pituitary tumors, pituocytoma, granular cell tumors, spindle cell oncocytoma, have all been grouped into one category because they are supposed to biologically arise from the same cell. So they are related, but their clinical outcomes may vary. So they still retain their different names. But a new entity of pituitary blastoma has been added to differentiate it from other embryonal tumors that can mimic it. So this is a rare tumor in the pituitary, which is seen in infancy. It consists of blastemal cells, neuroendocrine cells, and Rathke's epithelium. In the craniopharyngioma, like I had said, adamantinomatous and papillary, which were earlier called variants, are now different types based on their molecular profile, which define their treatment and behavior. So to conclude, I would say that in the new WHO 2021 edition 5, what the broad changes that have occurred for the PG students would be that amongst the diffuse astrocytomas, diffuse gliomas, the pediatric and the adult type of gliomas have been separated. The diffuse and the circumscribed tumors have been separated. The glioneural tumors have some new entities, and these separations have been done because of the molecular changes which define their behavior and response to treatment. In the nomenclature, in WHO grading, we have adapted Arabic numerals as in all WHO tumor classifications. The grading of each tumor is within each tumor group. So astrocytoma will have its own grading, astrocytoma 1, 2, 3, 4. We no longer use the terms atypical or anaplastic. In order to really make this WHO 2021 useful, ideally what we would need is methylation profiles of all of these tumors. And as we know, this is something which is a limitation in our setting, but it would be desirable. And hopefully in the coming years, it would be available and accessible to most people. An integrated diagnosis is definitely recommended in the new classification, which was also there in the last classification, but this may be a challenge in our setting. When we are unable to make an integrated diagnosis because of unavailability of the methylation profiling or specific IHC, we should use freely the terms of NOC and NEC. NOC meaning not otherwise specified, and NEC would be not elsewhere classified. So if you do the molecular test, you look at a tumor, it looks like a oligodendroglioma, but it does not show 1p19q co-deletion. You can still call it an oligodendroglioma NEC. And if it is, if you are unable to do 1p19q co-deletion at all, you can just call it oligodendroglioma WHO grade 2 or 3 NOS. With this, I would like to thank Gims Gadag for giving me an opportunity for speaking on this topic, which is vast and confusing for all of us. I also want to thank the Neuropathology Society of India because it's had so many seminars over the last year, and it has made these synthesis of all of this information easier. I would like to thank my director, Dr. Nitin Agarkar, and our HOD, Dr. Amit Chauhan, for always supporting us. The sources for all the slides that I've put are the C Impact Now updates, the recent Louis paper in neuro-oncology, and Annals of Oncology paper 2019. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam, for your wonderful lecture. Madam has explained in depth the new classification of WHO 2021 WHO classification. She has compared the older classification and the newer classification, and especially the role of molecular diagnosis in the CNS classification. Very well explained. And the new variants also madam has explained, and also the reporting pattern. And a very complicated topic has been made in a simplified way for the postgraduate students to understand, especially for the beginners. Any question from the audience? I think some questions were typed during the session.
Okay.
The question from chat box is, which IHC marker is available for molecular typing among all the new entities listed in WHO new classification?
This is a very good question, and all of us have the same issue everywhere. So I think in the last classification, most big centers already had ATRX, IDH, IDH, immunohistochemistry, and also H3K27 in a lot of centers. But the new WHO is just exploding. So this is a new thing when it comes about, and if it is, we are going to try and make a diagnosis. The IHC is not really compulsory. The whole point of the new WHO 2021 is that we have integrated clinical features, the age group, and the site of the tumors with the molecular profiles. And this is an evolving area. How these molecular profiles are going to affect prognosis, we are going to come to know in a few years. So don't be overwhelmed or scared because of it. Try to do the best that you can wherever you are. So look at the age of the tumor, look at its diffuse or circumscribed tumor, and then go back and see if it matches with any of the new entities. The problem with gliomas is there are a lot of differentials for these gliomas. Depending on in CNS, the material is very less. So it's difficult to make a proper diagnosis, especially in low-grade tumors or glioneuronal tumors. So this only gives us an idea in that ambiguous group that this could be something different based on where it is located. So I would say the IHC is already known in the in gliomas. You needed to do IDH, IDH1, IDH2, ATRX, and TP53 initially, and now we also have H3K27M, which is readily available. All the other IHCs are not really readily available in the market yet, but they will come soon.
Any other question from the audience?
Delegates, any questions? Kindly unmute and you can ask the questions.
I think if no questions, I think we can conclude the session.